Hey fellas, welcome to this video where we are going to make this amazing looking text entirely in Blender. And for my Hindi audience, भाई तुम्हारे लिए नई वीडियो आ जाएंगी, बस टेंशन मत लो. So before moving on, I'll just give you guys quick overview of how we are going to get this effect. First of all, we will add text, improve its typology, select the font we want, and then add shader. And lastly, the composition, which is pretty basic. Let's hop in Blender, delete everything, and then add a text by pressing Shift A. Type whatever you want and add a solidify modifier along with a remesh modifier to improve the typology of our text. In Sharp, increase its value to 7 and uncheck this box. Increase the thickness in the solidify panel. Let's quickly select a font. I'm using a Gillison default font from Windows and convert our text to mesh by pressing F3 and searching for convert text to mesh. Duplicate the text and add one last modifier, that is wireframe, and before we move on, just save your file so that you don't lose any data. Now we are just going to hide that wireframe mesh and add two icosphere. Apply a boolean modifier to our solid mesh. Select the icosphere you wanna extrude or remove from the mesh and select that exact option so that you get a very good topology all over, and then apply. Do the same for the second icosphere, placed under the B, letter B, alphabet B, whatever, and then apply the modifier. We are going to do similar thing for our wireframe mode. We are just going to use that fast option for wireframe because there is no, more vertices for Blender to calculate. So we are going to use fast in the wireframe mesh. Doing the same, just moving our icosphere a little up and little down so that you get an apocalyptic look for our mesh or text. Now we are just going to add some shader, which is pretty basic. We are going to apply a lava kind of shader for the material or solid mesh, and a very basic metallic shader for our wireframe mesh. Increase the metallic value to 1, decrease the roughness value to 0, and that's pretty much it for our wireframe mesh. Now let's talk about our solid mesh. For the solid mesh, we are just going to use the Musgrave texture as our base. We are going to plug it in roughness and bump, and we are going to bump for the normal so that we get a thick, believable bump, and it will give some extra realism for our text. So as you can see on the screen, the node setup is pretty basic. We have just added a texture coordinate and used object as the main input, and then by adding color ramp we are just controlling the value of reflection we want. Now let's add another color ramp between the bump and the Musgrave texture. We are going to use this as the mask of our emission texture. We don't have to add this invert node. I just did because I don't know, it was kind of a mistake. I was not looking very carefully at it, so you don't have to add this invert node. So this setup is pretty easy. You can just do it by yourself. It's not that big of a deal. Now let's move ahead. We are going to now do some compositing. Before compositing, we are just going to enable the bloom in this full scene, and then we are going to enable all those pretty things in Eevee we get, like ambient occlusion and subsurface reflection and all of that. In flow I just checked that motion blur also, which is not really important here because we don't have any kind of motion. So you can enable everything you can, and if you want then you can also make this scene transparent, which is not really important for now. So let's just hit that render button, and then after that we are going to apply the composition. Alright, now we are in composition. Select the render layer and hit Ctrl Shift right click so that you get a view of your render in the background. We are going to add 4 nodes. The first of all is glare node, second is lens distortion, third is color grading, and last one is exposure. Exposure is kind of optional. You can add, it's not mandatory to add it. It's up to you if you want. If you feel like it's a very overexposed render, so you get my point, right? In the glare value, we are going to increase this iteration value to 4 or maybe 2, I guess. Yep, the 2 is decent. We are going to use sharp as our type, and then we are going to use the mixed value to be minus 0.8, 0.7, 0.9, around like that. We're going to increase the fade value to point a bit like 0.847, 0.947, kind of like that. We have in lens distortion, just you don't have to do anything with distort value, you just have to increase the displacement value, I guess, and then you have to tick mark that jitter and fit, so that you get that tiny dot kind of thing in the edge of your render. It'll give you a sense of the photo or the render coming towards you, but it's not quite coming towards you. It's just a very interesting effect to play with. And then in color grading, you get the point. In color grading, it's kind of playing with the colors to get your the desired render, I would say. And in exposure, you can just play with it. In composition, it's pretty much like you get the notes, you play with it, you like the result, you hit render. It's like that. So ladies and gentlemen, it's the end of our video. If you like the video, then please hit that subscribe button. It will help me make more content in the future. And until then, bye bye.